Hey, it's Joe Farrell, Geek Toolkit. Today we're going to talk about the Atomstack A5 M50 laser. Now this is the third in a series that I've been doing on laser cutter, basically reviews, cutters and engravers, and this is the second one from Atomstack. Now if you've been following my channel, you know I do tech reviews, home automation, geeky gadgets and stuff like that, and this month we're focusing on lasers. The A5 M40 that I did my first review on, and this one here, this is a big brother of that one. It looks very similar, but it has quite a few features. We're going to talk in this review about 5 features that it has that are a differentiator between not only the M40, but a lot of other lasers out there. And then we're also going to talk about 5 projects. One big one that I'm really proud of, this book here. We're going to talk about how I made this. Now this is an electronic storage book, but this could be a storage unit for anything, where you can put it on the shelf like a book, and then open it up and have your storage bins here to sort, and you can have your labeling. I just realized I have that upside down there. Well, and actually have like your pinouts and stuff on the cover. So we'll talk about that. We're going to talk, the typical cutting boards. Did I do that one upside down? I did. Woohoo! I'm 0 for 2. We're going to talk about engraving metal, leather. We'll do a Slate coaster, and of course everything will be geek inspired because that is the name of the channel, Geek Toolkit. All right, so what is this A5 M40? It's a under $500 US laser. It's more of a mid-tier laser though. We're going to talk about those features and 5 features that really make it stand out. But it is a 40 watt power, that's total power. The actual laser is a 5.5 watt laser. And it is about a 16 inch by 16 inch cutting area open air laser. What that means is it doesn't come with an enclosure. I highly recommend getting one for it though. But this is very standard in these diode lasers that have been out there right now. That's, typically the form factor and the size about that you see. Okay, the first of the 5 things is the one I'm going to spend the most time on because it's the most important. We're going to talk about the laser itself. It is a 5.5 watt diode laser. Now, so is every other laser I've talked about. But here's the thing, it's a 5.5 watt at a 0.08 millimeter focal point, and it's a long focal point. Now that's 2 important things that are separate. When you take the energy of a laser and you push it down to a very, very tight point, even though it's the same 5.5 watt source, the actual point, you're going to get a higher centering temperature, and it's going to go deeper and faster on its cuts and its engravings. That is a super small point to be able to hit with a laser. Now, the other lasers, I think the M40 was like 0.16 by 0.12 or something like that. This is a 0.08. It's almost twice as much energy in a smaller dot size. That means you're going to get better engravings and better cuts. And that is exactly the performance I saw of this laser. This has been by far my favorite one so far of the ones I've reviewed because it's game changing in how much better it performed, even though it's still a 5.5 watt laser. Now the other thing that's interesting about this laser is the focal point is a really long focal point. It hits that focal point and it stays there for a while. What that means is, if you have a long focal point, you're going to cut better because the focus won't start, as you get down deeper, it won't start losing focus. If it loses focus, it's not going to cut as well. When it gets deeper, it won't be able to cut as deep. It also won't be able to cut as fast or as accurately. This one has a really long focal point. It's so long, a matter of fact, that they say it's a fixed focus, but does not require focusing, which when I read that, I was like, what are you talking about? Well, here's the thing. Normally you have a focus plate of 2 millimeters and you set the laser down on that plate, you pull it away, and then you're exactly 2 millimeters off whatever you're cutting. And that is the perfect point you have to be on. This thing, you just kind of get the laser close and you lock it in and you're good to go. I don't even know if it had a focal plate, but I haven't used one yet on any of my projects, and it hasn't mattered. It cuts through things, it engraves things, the engravings look great on it. I built this box with it. It performed great without any focusing. So that was a really cool thing. Okay, second thing I want to talk about is what are called limit switches or Endstops. Very simple concept. They're 2 switches, and what happens is the head of the laser, when it hits the switch, it tells the laser, okay, you're at the end. And then it stops the laser. That does 2 main things. One is it prevents the laser from doing something crazy where it goes and runs off into the side and grinds your motors down. The other thing is it makes it very repeatable. For instance, on this project here, when I was cutting the letters out, I didn't fill them the first time by mistake. I was able to tell the laser to home, which means it goes to 0, 0, and it uses those switches to find out where that is. And then I said, okay, go back and fill these letters in, and it was able to hit them all without any ghosting. Now, the other lasers that I've been talking about, I've been telling you, turn the laser off and move the head over to 0, 0, and that's how you zero it out, and you turn the laser back on. That just feels clunky, and after using this laser, it feels almost barbaric to do that. It feels like a hack. This one here is just so much more elegant. You hit the home button and the laser goes to where 0, 0 is, and then it continues. You're not like reaching in, flipping power on and off, moving the head like by hand to move it over where you want. The laser just kind of goes where it needs to go. So limit switches are the second thing for basically making this a differentiator. It's much more of a mid-tier design as far as like feature level, but it makes it even more beginner friendly than I expected. I was thinking of this as like, because it has all these extra features and it's a bit higher cost, that maybe it's out of the beginner range, but I would argue that this is an easier laser to use because of limit switches. Next thing I want to talk about is a very small safety feature, but it's an important one. It's called an emergency stop. This has the red button that you can hit. It's right on the front of the laser. If something were to go sideways, you can just reach there and hit it and it will stop the laser and power it off without having to reach back and find a power button or hooking up your own. I just thought that was a really simple thing, but it's, again, another differentiator. You don't have to go wire up your own emergency stop. It's a safety feature. It makes it easier for beginners, and they put it on this laser. I think it's well worth it. I wish every laser had it. And now that I have a laser with it, I would like to always have one on anything I use. So the safety stop is the third thing. The fourth thing is it comes with a control screen so that you don't have to have a computer hooked up. Now this was another criticism that I gave the M40 that the M50 does not have, is the M50 came with a screen that magnetically connects to the front of the machine. And it'll also connect, if you have an enclosure, it'll connect to the front of the machine through the enclosure, which is really nice. If you have a nice thin enclosure, I'll show you what that looks like. But what this does is you can have basically use your software, save your files out to an SD card, plug them into the machine, and start using it to run the laser. This does two main things. One is your computer doesn't have to be right next to your laser, which is super handy. The other thing it does is if you have a computer hooked up to your laser, the computer is always running the laser. That means if you take an update and your computer reboots, guess what? The laser doesn't work. If you forget to charge your computer, if your charging cable comes out and your computer goes to sleep, you lose the laser job. So your computer becomes tethered to the laser. With the SD card, you can remove the computer, continue to design on the computer while you have the laser running almost autonomously. Again, for safety, I would stay in the room, make sure you can visually see it. All those things have a camera on it, but you're not tied to, if your computer reboots, your laser is going to be fine. It's just running the code off the SD card. It's very easy. You basically set it up like you were going to set it up on the computer, but then you plug that in the SD card. You can still frame to find out where it's going to cut and move your object. And this is great if you're going to, again, if you're going to do some kind of manufacturing or print a lot of, or cut a lot of things, you could just keep running that SD card program and cutting things. And that's just really, really handy, I think. So, very simple. It's got a little micro SD card. It has a nice little screen. You can jog the laser, you can frame it, and you can tell it to go, and it'll give you a progress meter and let you know when it's done. So, very cool having that screen, that whole offline concept. Again, a very, very nice feature for this laser. The last thing I want to mention is the accessories for this laser are interesting. Now you've got a rotary, which is pretty standard. That allows you to do tumblers and glasses and stuff like that. But it also has a frame extension available. Now the frame extension doubles the size. It's basically 16 by 16 and it goes to 16 by 33 inches. And this is basically a 2 frames and a longer belt, I believe, is the main thing in that kit. I don't happen to have it. But the ability to go big with this laser and do really, really large pieces of artwork, or to do a whole bunch of different things. Like if you're doing slate tiles, you could probably do about 16 or 20 of them at a time. That is, again, great if you're going to get into a business with a laser like this and you want to do a massive amount of things, or really large pieces. So that is something cool that not every laser I've looked at has had that ability. I know the X series has this ability for the Atomstacks, but this one here, the M50, they call it out. So really cool expandability in the future for this laser. Okay, so that was 5 cool features about the laser. The next thing we're going to talk about is 5 projects. We'll start with the small ones, and we'll get into the big one here. And I'll just kind of walk you through. I have them in front of the table. The first thing is Slate. Slate's basically cutting into rock. And this Slate tile, I did a sword logo. Now, I did not invert it, so it came out. I kind of actually liked the way it came out. But it cut right into this very easily, very straightforward. And I've seen some amazing slates that have been cut into, so being able to do this is a very cool artistic thing. It's a cool gift if you want to personalize something, give it away. That was my slate project. I just wanted to make, again, like a coaster or something like that. Now, I did a couple of leather ones. I did, my friends that are big 49ers fans, and I wanted to taunt them, so I put their logo on a piece of leather. That came out really well, and then I did a geek version of this. Now, the thing about this one here, this is a lighter version of leather, but you'll notice that it's actually smeared a little bit across the leather there. And that was just something that, you have to protect the leather after you burn it to make sure that that doesn't happen. I'm going to look into leather cleaning, and I'll probably do a feature on leather itself. So, follow if you want to do that, because I will do a series of technique videos after this series of reviews. The leather here, the biggest thing was, this is from Nikki Schwartz, and I can tell you that because I can read her name. It did the lettering that cleanly and that tightly. This is not that big of a piece, and all of the logos came out really great. The next thing I did is, and I'm still working on this, I made sure that the corners here are not rounded. This is a Battlestar Galactica badge I found. I just wanted to do something that wasn't necessarily a business card, but this one is a boomer card that I did, and it came out great. I did the backside wrong, or I'm sorry, this was the first try I did. I did not invert the image, so remember, if you're going to cut into something like metal, you might need to invert the image to get it to come out. Same with slate, by the way. If you're going to cut on something dark, basically, make sure you invert it if you want it to look more like the picture that you're using. Now, cutting boards are an incredibly popular thing to laser. They're very personalized. I've seen people take recipe boards and they cut them onto cutting boards and stuff like that. I just did a quick Geek Toolkit's Kitchen to see how this worked, and it was very, very fast for this engraving, but the sword is actually cut into the wood a little bit. That means that you have to be very, very careful about your power settings on this laser because it's so powerful. You either need to speed it up or back off power or both to make sure that you have engravings. Now, the way you do this, you figure it out, is you take something like this and you get a sample one or one that you're going to just kind of etch into. You etch a grid into it to find out what is basically your power and speeds. Now, this laser can do 7,000 millimeters per minute at 100% and do quite a nice engraving with it, honestly. So I'll show you that grid in a second here. Now, the final project and the big project I did with this laser is I had this concept of basically having these books that would store electronics. I've been always trying to find a better way to store my electronics. I was thinking it would be really cool to have books on the shelf, and this one's, labeled Arduinos. Now, I did that upside down, but that's okay. And then what I wanted to do is when you open the book up, I wanted to have basically these grids here. Now, what I did is I went over to boxes.py, search for that. I'll link to it in the description, but basically it has these generators that allow you to generate things like these inserts. So all I had to do is take this book and measure the book across and up and down, and then it would give me the file for the inserts based on how many I wanted for rows and columns. I said 3 columns and 4 rows, so I had 12 little boxes. And then what I did is I created a grid on this side, and for everything that's over here, I have the list. So this is an Arduino Pro Micro, an Arduino Nano, an Arduino Micro, and so on. So now my electronics are organized and labeled. And then on the side here, on the spine of it, I have, it says Arduinos. Now again, that's upside down. But the way I did this one is I cut it out of paper, and then I put that on there, and I marked it with a Sharpie to use it as a stencil, because getting the laser up that high would have been kind of hard or difficult unless I had some really good feed extensions for it. Now, the other thing I did is on the front of this box, I actually did all of the pinouts for a Raspberry Pi, an Arduino, an ESP01, a Digi Uno, and all of the different electronics I have in here. So I can actually look at this and see right on the front of this where my power pins are on my Raspberry Pis. I can see where my Arduinos are my PWMs and my analogs. Hi, you're probably wondering what just happened. My battery died. This is the next day. Got the battery charged back up. We're gonna keep going. So what I was describing here is that I've got the etchings on the front of the box for all of the pinouts. And this project has been a really cool idea for me because I've always wanted a really innovative way to explain or store my electronics and have it so I can like pull them off the shelf. I can take projects to other people's houses. And then the other thing I like about this is any small items. I could have like a bookshelf with a bunch of these, and then I've got, you know, my labels for my small items and whatever I'm grabbing at the time, be it electronics or something else. Even things that like wire cleanup stuff that I have. It seems like organizing that stuff such a pain. This could be anything. This doesn't have to be electronics. This could be sewing or any hobby stuff. You could do really cool artwork on the front of this. There's a lot of really cool ideas behind this like book box concept. So anyway, I thought that was a cool project. I'll actually do a video on this showing how I laid it out in Lightburn and so on. Okay, final thoughts on this laser. I thought I was going to walk into this review and say, this is a great second laser and this would be your upgrade path. This is your mid-tier laser. And that is not how I feel at all right now. All of the features I talked about that this laser has that the M40 did not have, I think they're honestly really important features. I think that they are all valid and basically are going to make your life easier and more reliable for the hobby. And I think that people that have fun doing a hobby are more likely to enjoy it and do it more and get deeper into it. And this is a hobby that takes some time to understand and learn and repeatability and all. The Endstops are a great example. The Endstops I didn't think was a big deal because on the M40 you just turn it off, you move it over. But here's the thing, if you do a cut, if you do an engrave, let's say, and the engrave does not go deep enough, you can tell it to engrave again and it will engrave right on top of what it was on. And that's really important to be able to do that because then you can darken it without losing the entire work and the time, because some of these engravings are several hours at a time. You know, I'm typically watching a movie and then babysitting this laser, and if I do that for 2 hours and I have to throw away the engraving, that sucks. You don't want to lose that time, and especially if you're thinking about going into a business, you don't have that time to lose. So, and also it's not just time, it's the stock, whatever you're burning onto. It can get pretty expensive. Some of these pieces of wood I'm burning are $18, $20 each, and I don't want to lose them. I want that repeatability and knowing I can get the laser right back where it was. And so the Endstops are awesome for that. The not having to rely on a laptop, super important. Being able to like put an SD card in the SD card slot and telling it to go and to take my laptop and continue working. Very, very important feature, and the laser is able to do that. This laser is, because it has that offline feature with the controller. I love that. The other thing is the emergency stop. Almost a no-brainer. Everything should have an emergency stop. You have to buy one or get something hooked up anyway if you don't have one. So having it built in a laser, great. Now, what does the laser not have? Well, the laser does not have an enclosure. You're definitely going to want to get an enclosure and a ventilation system. I know I sound like a broken record. I say that every review, but these are all open air lasers and they need something. Now, you do not want to do something out of wood. I think I've seen 4 or 5 posts on Facebook in the last 2 months of people whose enclosures have caught on fire. And 3 of them I have confirmed had wooden bottoms on their enclosure and were cutting something. The laser was going and for whatever reason it stopped. The safeties didn't trigger and then the stock caught on fire and then it caught the box on fire. You should have an enclosure that is fire resistant. Atomstack makes one that, you know, is just for this so that the emergency stop pops out. I'll link to another one I've picked up right now, but you should have an enclosure with an air ventilation system because the fumes are dangerous. I'm going to say that in every video. Also, you might want to get better laser safety glasses. I use these here. They are very fashionable nowadays, but you know what? They work. So, the laser does a really good job of its safety thing, and then your enclosure has a safety thing, but to me, you just can't have enough stuff between your eyes and something that will destroy them instantly. Overall, I think this is a great laser. I am very, very pleased with it. Easy to put together, easy to get up and running, has performed amazingly well. I will do a follow-up video for this box. I'll talk about how I set this up because that's really a light burn tutorial, and also a little bit about boxes.py. So I'll give you, if you want to know more about this, I'll go into detail on that in the next video. I want to thank you for following me. I want to thank Atomstack for providing this laser for review. It's gonna definitely be one that gets a lot of use, and I'm really excited about this hobby. It's been a lot of fun. It's really been unexpected, all of the ways you can use a laser and all of the use you can get out of a diode laser. I just did not think that, I thought, you know, you had to go spend thousands of dollars to get this hobby going. And that's not what I'm seeing. I'm seeing that for under $500, you can have lasers that are absolutely amazing and do everything I'd want to do. So, thanks for watching. If you have any questions, please put them in the comments below. I'm Joe Farrow, Geek Toolkit, and I'll be back soon.